That's not something we see every day. And yes, you say a trainer. It is primarily used as a trainer. It does have some combat utility. There are 6 underwing hardpoints for carrying fuel tanks or in some cases unguided bombs or rocket pods, but their combat use has generally been to the displeasure of the Swiss government. But the PC-7 interestingly does have 1 air-to-air kill to its name when one shot down an Iranian AH-1 Cobra during the Iran-Iraq War in 1984. But this display, being very far from air combat in most respects, this is an aerial ballet rather than a capability demonstration, and we open with a very graceful loop in their classic 9-ship shape Flying Diamond. Now, a sequence of formation changes over the course of a 360-degree turn, initially to Grand Flèche, Big Arrow, but watch for the 2 aircraft flying in line astern behind the leader as they are about to spread out to create a shape called Delta. And there they go.
The PC-7 introduced to the Swiss Air Force in 1982, and they began flying 9-ship team displays on a fairly informal basis in the late 80s. The team was officially established in 1989 to mark the Air Force's 75th anniversary, and has displayed abroad for its first time in 1992.
Now we see a new formation called Propeller as the A-26 taxis underneath the PC-17 in preparation for its second display slot. And another formation change, but this formation only to be held very briefly because the 2 solo pilots are about to split away and they will come back towards us to start a more dynamic phase of the display. So watch for them to peel off from the main formation around about now. The smoke comes on and they will point directly at this building, which has a big orange marker tie-wrapped to the front of it, and they will perform an opposition break. And Luke, you can see just how hard they're working as they tackle the wind drift flying in towards us there.
I will tell you that it is, even though the airplanes look rock solid, it's quite bumpy in the cockpits, particularly down low, and you can see that displayed visually with the smoke. And of course with all the gusty winds at altitude, making this even more so challenging.
Stall turns as the 2 solos run in back towards us for an opposing 360-degree turn.
Crossing not once but 3 times throughout this full 360-degree opposition maneuver.
And we'll see something similar but even more complex in fairly short order. In about 10 minutes or so later into the display, you will see a 4-ship version of that, plus the Soloist flying up through the middle of it as well. But Luke, now it's time for, I think, what is certainly my favourite manoeuvre, and I get the feeling it's your favourite manoeuvre as well, as we see the remaining aircraft rolling out on the left 45-degree line. This, a relatively new move, introduced to the display last year. The team taking advantage of spare training capacity thanks to slow pilot turnover to create this fantastically graceful and rather unusual manoeuvre called rolling dice. about to turn through around 90 degrees, revealing just how unconventional that 5-ship formation in the middle is. Quite a lot of vertical separation between the 3 rows of aircraft. Look at just how slow the 2 at the back are as they perform some of these barrel rolls. Exceptional. But we look now for the Soloist arriving from the right.
Big vertical loop right here at show center. We're going to watch for the onset of G and the subsequent climb into the vertical.
Yes, and this in fact 2 half loops stacked on top of each other. No mean feat for an aircraft that is relatively low on power. And then we will see a flat spin as the aircraft descends back towards Earth. Luke, we mentioned that rolling dice is quite a new manoeuvre for the team. Well, that is quite an old one. They've been flying that since the 90s. In fact, back then, the team looked very different. They flew aircraft painted silver and orange in the standard Swiss Air Force training scheme. They had no smoke systems.
It was, in fact, in 2008 that the Swiss Air Force upgraded to the NCPC-7, a new version of the aircraft with a glass cockpit. As of 2011, all aircraft in Swiss service have received this upgrade. The aircraft were also repainted into national colors, and as you mentioned, Adam, before, they were in a standard orange and silver training scheme.
Out in front of us, the formation of 8 aircraft splits into 2 groups. It was known as Doppeldiamant, double diamonds. Well, now we have 2 single diamonds. And they're going to turn back towards us for another new manoeuvre introduced last season. This is called Mega Crossing. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any other aerobatic team that performs a full 360-degree opposing turn with such large formations of aircraft.
It reminds me a bit of the Frecce Tricolore, that fly a sort of double crossing of formations of aircraft, but I believe you're right, Adam. I'm not aware of another that does it as a full 360-degree turn.
Yes, the Frecce very much specialising in crosses of that nature.
We are most looking forward to having them in North America here for a couple of months as they celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Setting up now for another vertical tail chase manoeuvre here in the PC-7 team.
You mentioned the Frecce. They're doing their first North American show this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing them next weekend in Trenton. And you've got the Reds as well. They're performing a similar manoeuvre as well this year, a 5 versus 4 cross. But what a great view of that tail chase with the aircraft sort of popping through the shot one by one.
Yeah, the Frecce off to Cold Lake, Alberta this weekend. Now we're going to watch this next maneuver, Adam, as a series of sort of individual breakaways for a maneuver that's aptly named.
Yes, the Rheinfall, which is German for waterfall.
And we're going to watch that 5-ship echelon formation, or all to one side formation, as we watch the team leader begin the pull.
Do you think I haven't noticed you giving me all the tricky foreign words to say?
Yes. You'll be a lot more versed in them than I.
I wouldn't count on it. Absolutely beautiful, that manoeuvre.
Super mirror coming up next. That's a maneuver that I can pronounce. And we're going to watch here as momentarily the leader of this particular four-ship of PC-7s is going to roll to the inverted position. Of course, the Rheinfall continuing to take place in front of us in that tail chase.
Just looking glorious in his late evening light. I know it's not always popular with the photographers being backlit, although it does come into its own later on as the sun really starts to set, but I love seeing backlit smoke.
Yeah, a bit of a challenge for the photographers, but at the same time allows for some creativity as well, particularly with the silhouette shots.
Absolutely. Well, now out in front of us, 4 aircraft diving in to pull up and draw. Not the first heart of the day. We've had quite a few hearts already, but I think we can have another. So slow over the top. And we'll continue to follow the 2 pairs of aircraft, and interesting to see that to account for the wind, one of them has started their turn onto the show line.
Quite early, yes.
Now about 10 seconds and counting, and the second group has also now started their turn. I wonder if they've slightly overcompensated here as they approach to perform the collider. Oh no, you know what? They won't be far
just
off.
by a hair, but not as far as one would guess. Really gives you an idea of those ongoing stiff winds at altitude.
Yes, and worth noting that the winds up there could be doing something quite different to the winds down here. Slow roll from our solo pilot. But now, you may recall, Luke, I mentioned a few minutes ago, we were going to get some more opposing 360-degree turns, but this time with 4 aircraft, 2 from the left, 2 from the right.
This is a fairly unique maneuver, I think, performed only by the PC-7 team.
Yes, I'm not aware of any other team doing anything like it.
We're going to see the 4 aircraft, but in fact, this maneuver is flown with 5. We've got 2 aircraft from the right, 2 from the left. They're going to position themselves away from each other a bit in extended, very, very spread apart line abreast formation. And as soon as they make their way to center, we'll watch for the turns, and they'll end up in this big swirling 360 with 2 aircraft going one direction and the other 2 going the opposite.
A swirling melee. They used to call it the dogfight. This year it has been renamed Batman, and up through the middle goes the soloist, about to perform a negative G bunt, and then threading the needle for a second time very shortly. So a line astern barrel roll next from the right. And this is called Snake. And you can see how hard they were working there.
Yeah, the line astern type flying, or in trail, can be quite difficult because every ripple sort of works its way through the formation. and is multiplied with more aircraft.
A loop here, and this will transition into a loop in the lateral sense, by which of course I mean a minimum radius turn. And then we're going to see, I think, my favourite solo manoeuvre of the display.
Yeah, a dirty roll. We had a chance to see the PC-9 from the Slovenian Air Force perform one of these. Now it's time for the Swiss to do so in the PC-7.
But what I particularly love about the way the Swiss do it is that they start the roll flying exactly towards us. It looks quite imposing, if a PC-7 could look imposing. But the landing light's on, pointing straight at us. Look at the wind drift there as the aircraft is pushed off to our right-hand side and then up into the roll. And I think a little bit further away from us than usual today, but had to sort of begin that rolling motion before the wind drift pushed the aircraft too far off to show right. And you love the name of this manoeuvre. You can also pronounce it.
Oh, yes, it is Loop-O-Mania. I love all the names of the maneuvers with the PC-7 team between Batman and Rheinfall and Loop-O-Mania that we're seeing now. Now, this is sort of a little bit different in terms of flying in-trail loops, because typically they just kind of follow one another around the same sort of flight path, but here they all perform their own individual loops. A little different.
Yeah, and trying to match the apex height of each loop while actually flying blind a lot of the time. Another solo maneuver that I love coming up. Diving towards us, going to point directly at show center and very abruptly turn off to the side. Quite high energy turn there. And now the soloist will say farewell to us with a wing rock, but with an added flourish. This will be a wing rock of two halves. The first half performed out to our right, then the aircraft will turn away from us, pull up into a stall turn, and then eventually reposition back on the display line for the second half of the wing rock to our left. And that's a proper wing rock, a full 90 to 90. Might be able to hear in the background some musical notes accompanying this display. That is specially composed music, and it was actually created by the brother of a former team leader. Now, this is the most famous of the PC-7 team's manoeuvres coming up. It is called the Tunnel, and you can see on your screen now 8 aircraft to our right hand side, landing gear down, landing lights on, creating, oh, such an enticing target for the soloist. Formation changes subtly. You saw them all move up onto the same level to create a formation called square. This is the same as Flying Diamond, but with the central aircraft missing. time for a little bit of Switzerland in the sky. This formation is called Swiss Cross, and I would speculate is probably the most difficult to fly.
Difficult formation. We have both the sort of in-trail 4 aircraft, and then the other 4 that are very much in a line abreast formation. They having to look 90 degrees from their flight path to judge and gauge their position.
But holding it beautifully as they come round for a belly-up pass. Soloist now moving in to catch up with his teammates, and they will set up for the final manoeuvre of the display, which is a lovely on-crowd bombburst called the Finale Grande. So there is the Swiss PC-17.